Good morning. First of all, many thanks to the Fundación and to this forum to let me contribute to this forum on behalf of Gentek, the company that I represent here in Europe, and also a little bit on behalf of another company that I founded myself, Toptronic. And I'll explain you what we have to add to the field of mobile phone technology and services and how the partners in that organization can earn money. In principle, my background is I'm a manufacturer in China of RFID products, transponders, etc. And always searching for added value to identification products. 2 years ago, I came in contact with Gentek, an American company, an IP development company in America, and they announced sensor technologies, sensor designs that I was highly interested in adding to our product. In the end, because of my contacts with the semiconductor industry, the Philips semiconductors, now NXP and Impinj and ST, etc., we joined our efforts, and that's the reason why I'm here now. And yes, the basic thing that makes Gentek interesting to me and hopefully to you and to the world is one very, very important patent that they made, by the way, in common with Motorola, each having independent assignment rights. And that patent describes that if you have a cell phone, and that cell phone will be containing an RFID reader, between brackets, RFID stands for radio frequency identification, so wireless identification. So if you have a cell phone with an RFID reader integrated in it, and then you read out an RFID-based sensor, you are then automatically building a wireless sensor network that works global, where the consumers, every consumer in the world has a cell phone now, in fact are having the equipment already to form that sensor network. And we apply this sensor network in several directions, in several different markets. One of the markets that is a driver for us, but that we do not touch ourselves, is the smart wallets market. NFC, near field communication, is one of the RFID standards that is emerging now. It was mentioned yesterday as well. It's in pilot now in many, many countries all over in the world and will serve as a technology where you can do payments through your cell phone, where you can use your cell phone as access control means in hotels or museums or event parks or whatever, where you could do smart posters, for example. A cell phone, you could touch a poster where a BMW is advertised, and by holding the cell phone very close to that picture, that smart poster that contains a tag will then communicate with your cell phone and exchange address and information, etc. Well, that is called NFC, and although it's wonderful and we believe strongly in it, that is exactly the part that Gentek is not touching, but we are piggybacking on it, because we know that based on the importance of NFC in the market, we know by research organizations that the expectation is that between 1/3 and 50%, half of all the cell phones that will be sold between last year and 2012, 2014, roughly, will be RFID enabled. And that means that 50% of all the worldwide consumers will have RFID reading capability in their hands, costs nothing extra to them, would only cost a very, very small amount of money extra in the hardware for the cell phone manufacturers. To give you a very simple figure, the rough added hardware cost to a cell phone manufacturer to integrate RFID into a cell phone is in the range of $5 US. Neglectable, we would say. Okay. So the markets possible to read with RFID-based cell phones would be, of course, to follow logistics. And in terms of logistics, it could be interesting not only to see identity, but also to follow what has been happening temperature-wise or chemically pollution-wise with those products on their way to the end user. Put such sensor on it, read out by a cell phone or in the organization by other RFID readers, and you'll have the complete history or real-time data of that. Combined, actually, with location information, geolocation, because of GPS or other triangulation methods. I'll come back to that aspect later. Another very big market that we believe will be very important in is the counterfeit market. I'll come back to the counterfeit market and follow the slide sequence, it's easier. If we think of an RFID sensor, think of an RFID tag that contains this ID chip and contains a sensor to sense whatever. Could be pressure, temperature, glucose levels. Think in a very wide range of ideas.
Telephone for Mark.
Excuse me. Think in a wide range of affairs. What we have been inventing and starting to produce now is this. It is an RFID tag integrated in a skin patch. A skin patch put directly on the skin of the customer, of the patient, and if that skin patch would be read by the cell phone will communicate the data to the hospital server or remotely to a remote database that could be extra of help in elaborating the data and send back that information to the cell phone user. The system, technically, very simple. We have a picture here of a Nokia phone. Nokia, of course, is one of the companies that is one of the drivers, together with Philips and Sony and many other companies in the NFC field. So you would have a Nokia, for example, cell phone. One of the chips in there is this NFC RFID reader. We know in our direct communications with the NXPs of this world that very soon, after summer, these NFC-only readers will actually become multi-protocol readers, and therefore then also include another type of chip within the same 1356 megahertz frequency, which is called ISO 15693, and that typically is a chip that is very interesting for us to use because it's read and writable and safety can be implemented, etc. Two types of transponders, tags you could think of. One is the skin patch, like I have here. One other one could be a tag of any shape and size. We can produce them as small as 11 millimeters in diameter, enabling very easily the putting of that tag inside the cap of a pharmaceutical box, for example. In terms of counterfeit, that is extremely interesting. The counterfeit market is expected to be as big as $1.2 trillion in 2009. That is counterfeit on pharmaceutical products very much. Counterfeit on spare part products for cars and airplanes, etc. Counterfeit on Nike shoes, branded products, famous wines, cognacs, etc. Incredible. So simply by adding any type of RFID transponder in such product, and prior to purchasing that as a user or applying it as an engineer repairing that aircraft, for example, you could use your mobile phone, read out the identity automatically and immediately there will be contact made from your cell phone through GPRS, for example. No high data rate is really required for this, to a database anywhere. That could be in the USA or China or anywhere, and you'll get back immediately the information whether or not that product had been registered by Nike, in my example, to be an original product. And that could be combined not only with the authenticity proof of that product, but also combined with geolocation. For example, could that pair of Nike shoes be sold in the USA, or is it gray import? And was it actually supposed to be sold in China also, right? The other example is the skin patch, for example. Read out the patient's identity prior to taking off the left leg or the right leg to check the patient chart. Or prior to giving medicine as a nurse or a doctor, check if that medicine is not causing any allergy reaction or too much medicine has been delivered already. Such ways of using a cell phone or a PDA, either with RFID reading and then with communications either through GPRS or even within a wireless LAN, also that is part of this infrastructure, that is completely covered. In terms of the skin patch and the health application, this is a very important aspect of what Gentek has been doing and has been patenting worldwide. We have designs that we partly have been making by ourselves, but also partly we are working together with other companies. So any other company here present that thinks that they have technology in-house to use as a sensor and add within our infrastructure, we'd be very, very happy and welcome to speak with you. What we have been patenting and designing is a skin patch to monitor not only identity but also temperature. So temperature control could be used in a hospital. It could also be used to do remote checking. For example, does your old mother, when you phone her, still have any temperature or a good temperature? Well, any temperature she'll have, but a good temperature. Glucose, I'll come back to that later. It's a multi-billion dollar market that will be able to supply with a wonderful solution for this. Drug delivery, pain management, skin infections, cardiac control by reading the pulse rate and the intensity, UV exposure. You can't limit the types of sensors that would influence our health. This is one of the very nice practical examples that we have been making a contract about. Imagine you would have to undergo surgery. You broke your arm or your leg in this example, and they put die cast around it. Now, prior to putting the die cast around it, they could apply a tag, the skin patch, on your skin, between the skin and the die cast. Now, next day, for sure, I know myself, I once broke my 2 pulses, so I know how that feels. Next day, it will hurt, and you'll call your doctor and say, something is wrong. Really, there should be something wrong mechanically or infection-wise or whatsoever. And he can't judge. He should believe you or not, and most probably he will send you away, say, don't cry, come back 6 weeks later, and we'll take away the die cast. Whilst if he would have the opportunity, have had placed this RFID tag, and the consumer would have this RFID-enabled cell phone, or in case the consumer does not have that cell phone, he could borrow or rent that from the hospital temporarily. Next day, you could very simply hold the cell phone there, read out the actual temperature and pressure difference compared to the original one. That is then sent to your general practitioner, your doctor, and that is reason then to either open the die cast or not. Saving money, much more comfort, etc. This is the big thing for us, really the big thing. Diabetes. So many people all over the world suffering from diabetes. People that suffer seriously from diabetes need to prick themselves to test the blood, make a true blood contact with a sensor. Ideally, the insulin level should be kept as horizontal, as flat as possible to have a good quality of life. So quite frequently you need to hurt yourself, to prick yourself and do this test. What we have been inventing and patenting, but not only inventing just by ourselves, but in combination with a very, very large and powerful American group that will together announce very soon now, this cooperation, is a non-invasive, and I really stress the word non-invasive, glucose test system, where we have a skin patch, where we have a sensor integrated in the skin patch, combined with a battery. It does require some extra power, where the end user has his cell phone with RFID. You simply hold the cell phone here. It will, through this radio frequency communication, activate the battery to start some powering process that, if I put it very bluntly, will burn a small hole, an extremely small hole in the skin, such small hole that it doesn't hurt, and this is really important. But anyway, the hole is, and I'm very sensitive for anything that hurts, but I'm told that this is really, really hurtless. And it will allow a channel, it will make a channel for the blood to get through the skin, transdermal, without being invasive. Get in touch, the physical contact between the blood and the sensor. The sensor will communicate its data again to your cell phone. You can read out what is the level, and at the same time, the software and the controller in your cell phone could be driving a reservoir of insulin to command the system to deliver you the exact amount of needed insulin at that moment. That could be a reservoir part of the same skin patch, could be a separate skin patch, could be a micro pump, which could be implemented in your body. A very, very, very big market. Gentech is an IP company. We are a small company. Anybody in Gentech, apart from me, is a true scientist. And we do not plan to bring this kind of product to the market ourselves. Absolutely not our business model. This should be something to be bought by famous name Philips, a global company active in personal diagnostics. What we will do is bring the technology, bring the infrastructure, the tested designs that we have now, and it's up to them then together with the help of our people, of course, to further develop it, market it, get it FDA approved, and go to market sometime later. Another very, very important thing is an immunoassay. When I joined Gentek, to be honest, I didn't know what an immunoassay was, so probably part of you don't know either. It's a self-test. I always use the example of a pregnancy test. You have a pregnancy test, there's some urine you put on there, and if an extra stripe appears, that stripe will prove that you're pregnant. Now that's a very binary result. You don't need any telephone or software or whatever to interpret whether or not you're pregnant. In the case of an immunoassay, it could be printed loops, chemical substances that react on blood or urine. So imagine, and this is one of the things that we are announcing shortly, is a prostate cancer prediction test, an immunoassay, where you have a tag with this printed chemicals, and in this case you don't put blood but actually urine on it. The urine will react with the chemicals will transmit their information, the complicated information, through the RFID chip to the cell phone in the hands of the consumer. The result is not a simple yes or no. It should be really elaborated by a laboratory. So by GPRS, it's sent to a remote laboratory, and within 1 or 2 minutes, you get the result, saving the world a lot of cost for sending to a laboratory, for using your doctor's time, for waiting for 2 weeks for the result, etc. And everybody can win. The consumer in terms of time, the carrier in terms of the extra service, the mobile phone industry for selling extra services through their phone, and hopefully Gentek in the end as well. This is this prostate test, like I explained. Another very interesting product that we have been patenting, in fact, 10 years ago already, and which is now under review by the American government since 9/11, is a very interesting example on what we can do with mobile phones as well. Imagine you do not use the mobile phone with its RFID reader to read this RFID tag with or without a sensor, and then communicate, but imagine you have the cell phone itself containing a sensor. Then if you would build in, for example, a radiation or chemical environment pollution sensitive sensor, and they exist, we have this cooperation with a company in the US, and if you would integrate that small sensor inside the cell phone, then if you would put this cell phone in the hands of the roughly 5 million people active in the USA in logistic companies and getting in contact with the movement of goods, then you have a fantastic alerting system. Because now the USA, all container shipments are safeguarded by RFID and security technologies. But if I would send 100 envelopes with anthrax by post or DHL to the USA, for sure a great portion of those envelopes will come through. So what we say is, if you equip given by the government, all USPS workers, DHL workers, railway workers, firefighters, policemen, etc., customs, with a cell phone that will react directly on through this sensor if in the proximity this anthrax or whatever envelope would be there or a parcel, the alert would come up. It would save the person in this case, because he knows he needs to be clean to go out of that area. At the same time, immediately, CIA, for example, will have a real-time map of the USA where they see real-time what is happening where and what is the quantity of this event. Is it one person only, or is it 1,000 persons? Is it Al-Qaeda, or is it another natural disaster? Anyway, in both cases they are alerted and they can undertake action, evacuation, fighting, etc. Almost ready, yeah? We have been winning, let me see. Yeah, we've been winning an award by Frost & Sullivan last April as one of the technical innovation companies as a proof of liking what we did. And one of the aspects I wanted to add to this story, my last example, is a technology that we've been inventing and is in use actually by the US military at this moment, which is what we call the radar responsive tag. And I mention it because it is a perfect solution for the future to be integrated in cell phones as well. What it is a geolocation technology where in the civilian version that we'll be making, we will be able to find this tag, and therefore also the phone, if it's built in the phone, even inside houses. And we can geolocate over a distance of over 12 miles, say 20 kilometers, with an accuracy of less than 1 meter, 3 feet, where is the position of the phone or the notebook or the person carrying that phone. And we can combine that with geolocation with the sensing of the environment there. So typically it would be used to locate firefighters. In what room on this 50-story building in fire are the firefighters? Is there danger there? But also it can be used to really geolocate any event that we've been discussing the last 2 days, also inside buildings, a technology that we enable. Thank you.
Okay.